Hello and welcome everybody to the Tournament Center. I am Paul Chen, joined here by Autumn Burchett. You are currently crushing it, right? At 9-1?
9-1.
9-1 and undefeated and limited too.
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly you've figured out this format to some degree. Did you have any specific predetermined strategy kind of coming into this format?
So in general, I'm not big on the red cards. I think red is really weak. You can make good Rakdos decks if it's open at the table. Gruul is a bit tougher. And the flip side is that I love blue. I think the blue deck's really good. I think Simic Tempo is my favorite deck in the format. I think it's incredibly strong.
Yeah, I've been kind of following you on Twitter, and every time you post a picture, it's usually a Simic deck that went 3-0 or whatever. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, also, you're kind of, feels like you're just crushing it with all the blue stuff. I mean, you are, of course, playing the mono blue deck in the tournament as well. So let's hop into our draft here and see what we're looking at. So pack one, not the most exciting pack, right? Like, what were you considering here when you were looking at this pack?
So I think the best cards are, I really like Essence Capture. I think that card's incredibly strong.
Right.
Getting to put the counter on can really mess up like the board state for your opponent, make like a flyer, like a fairy duelist with a counter on it is a really relevant body. I also like, I think Applied Biomancy is really good in the tempo decks. And honestly, there's not a lot else here I like. I think Light Up the Stage is pretty overrated. Crusher is very good in like Teemo decks, but not so great in Gruul.
Because many of the DAP creatures are the ones that put lots of counters on their things. Okay, so let's take a look at what you actually decided to choose. And it was Essence Capture. Now, was this kind of, do you feel Essence Capture is a more powerful card than something like Applied Biomancy, or was this to maybe stay more open?
I think I prefer Essence Capture in general, but you definitely, if you're playing Essence Capture in Simic, you have to like make sure to pick up your Guild Gates.
Right. Just to be able to actually, because blue, not the easiest thing to do on turn two.
Exactly.
All right, so starting out with blue card, moving on to pack two, and we've got a lot of different options here. Of course, if you wanted to move into Simic, I see a Combine Guildmage, another Applied Biomancy, and then some other cards. What were the cards you were looking at here?
So there are 3 cards in this pack for me. I like Applied Biomancy, I like Combine Guildmage, I adore Mortify. Between the 2 Simic cards, I don't know which I take. Like a lot of the time, the Guildmage for me has been like close to Grizzly Bear, but obviously has the upside in like the super late game. But I think Mortify is just, up there for best uncommon. Yeah. It's very in that debate.
Right. So. And at the same time, keep in mind that, when you're drafting, you don't have to be married to your first pick. You just try to figure out what's open, and, Mortify seems to be clearly just miles above the other cards. So it looks like, let's see what you took. And it was, of course, no surprise, the Mortify. So you have the blue card, you have the Mortify. Now we're going to kind of try to see, where you end up going into pack 3. Oh, we've got some interesting options here. We got, Get the Point is a pretty solid removal spell. There's Priest of Forgotten Gods, and the Imperious Oligarch. Yeah. What were you kind of thinking when you were looking at this pack?
Those were the 3 cards that stood out to me. So between the Priest and the Oligarch, it's really interesting. I think the Priest is basically a gold card for me. I think of it as an Orzhov gold card. If you have it in Rakdos, it can be hard to get enough bodies for it. Whereas when you have an Imperious Oligarch in your deck and a Priest in your deck, getting 2 bodies from 1 card that you can sack to the Priest over like a couple activations, it really adds up having Afterlife with it. So I'm thrilled to follow up my Mortify with this card. I think it's very good, specifically in Orzhov. So
you think that this is just the better kind of gold 2-mana creature. Exactly. Especially when you're taking it this early, you can then just be even more aggressive about taking the Afterlife cards, right? All right, so those are the first 3 picks. Now we're going to be going into chunks of 3 here. Let's take a look at what the next set of packs got you here. So we have, of course, Priest of Forgotten Gods and Mortify, which made it into your deck. Of course, it's going to be hard to play Essence Capture with those cards. Moving on to your next 3 picks here. Wow.
It's just huge boon for the deck.
I mean, you went from Priest of Forgotten Gods to double Imperious Oligarch. You had to have been really excited about that.
This is the exact card I want in my deck with my Priest. It's perfect.
Absolutely perfect. And then, of course, we have the Ill-Gotten Inheritance to go with Impassioned Order and the Twilight Panther. So, I mean, this deck's shaping up beautifully at this point, right?
I'm thrilled at this point in the draft.
I have a question, though. Ill-Gotten Inheritance, what are your thoughts on that one?
Initially, I thought it wasn't very good.
Right.
I think everyone went through this revelation of, actually, this is really strong. I've stepped back a bit from that. I think it's really strong if you're proactive.
Okay.
So if I've got an inheritance in my deck, I want Plague Whites in my deck. I want to be pushing early damage so that I can actually threaten to burn my opponent out with it.
Okay, so it's at its best in aggressive strategies,
yes.
probably. You're looking to attack. Because I've played my fair share of slow, dirty decks. My opponent just plays this on turn 4 and 5, and I'm like, oh, I don't even want to play anymore. Yeah, all right. All right, rounding out pack 1 here, we have a Viscopa Vampire. That's the only card that ended up making your deck. Now, question, did you kind of put this in your deck as more of a 23rd filler card, or do you actively like having an effect like this in your deck?
So it's a 23rd card. I think it's a very good 23rd card, though, because the matchups where it's good, it's great. Against, like, Gruul, like, block your 3/3, gain 3 life is perfect against them. It's also very threatening that you can, if they attack too much, you can just choose not to block, blow up their blocker, hit them for free, and then you're getting, like, 6 life out of it. It's very bad against afterlife creatures, which means you sideboard it out a lot. But as 23rd cards go, it has a lot of upside to it.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. All right, moving on to pack number 2. First pick Bladebrand.
Yeah.
Can't be too excited about that. I mean, the rest of your deck looks pretty nice, and then actually your second and third picks look a lot stronger here. I mean, I'm assuming you just opened kind of a blank of a pack?
Yeah, the pack was terrible. There were, like, I think 0 other white or black cards in it. Or at least ones I'd ever consider playing. I think Bladebrand is actually quite good in proactive Orzhov decks, which I'm looking to be. I've got lots of 2-drops, so I'm kind of interested in attacking at the moment. And, like, being able to attack with your afterlife creature, use the Bladebrand to kill their blocker. They're like 5/5 or whatever, and get a token off it.
Right.
It's really strong.
Yeah, and I've also been destroyed by the interaction between this and Footlight Fiend, by the way. Oh, that is disgusting. All right, moving on to picks 4 through 6 here, we got Forbidding Spirit. You took an Orzhov Locket and a Plague White. The Spirit and the Plague White making it into your deck.
Yeah.
You know, just decent filler cards, right?
I actually really like the Plague White.
Oh,
I don't think this card is filler.
So not filler. This is why I'm doing the deck tech, and Autumn is currently sitting at 5-0 Unlimited.
It's unblockable. How do you block it?
Right. I mean, how does the black-white deck specifically block it, right? I mean, just like nice Spirit, nice Twilight Panther, just none of those things can actually block it. It makes a lot of sense. It kind of reminds me a lot of Ornery Goblin, I would say, from Guild of Ravnica.
It's Ornery Goblin, but it feels like, I don't know. It's like worse, much worse on defense.
Right.
But on, like, offense, I kind of prefer it sometimes.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. All right, going through picks 7 through 9 here. Looks like we got a sideboard card in Exposed to Daylight. Very important sideboard card in this format, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good enchantment effects. And then Catacomb Crocodile Rubble Belt Runner, didn't make the deck. Moving on here, picks 10 to 14, Arrestor's Zeal and Debtor's Transport. Now, Debtor's Transport, is that a card you actually like having in your decks?
I want one of those in every Orzhov deck. I think this is, even if you're proactive, like, this card comes down, it forces your opponent to trade, and then you get 2 bodies to keep attacking them with. In this deck, I get 2 bodies for my Priest of the Forgotten Gods, which is absurd. Like, I was really hoping this would table. Like, I was, like, crossing my fingers. I was very happy with it.
You know, and the thing is, this is kind of the type of card, you know, this is where you can really kind of, I think, get a lot of value when you draft this type of limited format, where oftentimes somebody looks at that card and like, oh, this is like a 23rd card. You table this, you get this kind of late. But then if it's actively like a pretty reasonable card in your deck, you know, then like, you know, these last pick cards just get so much more value, right? So yeah,
exactly.
that is nice. And then of course, Arrestor's Zeal. Do you also just like that? I mean, it looks like you're a little more on the aggressive end, but it doesn't seem to me that people are really super high on this card.
I'm not super high on it. I think it's better in a deck like this. It was one of, like, the 23rd considerations.
Okay.
I'm still not big on it even in this deck.
Right.
But it's fine. It's like, well, I'm beating down.
Just main phase it with the Debtor's Transport and just get him for 7. All right, let's go and take a look at pack. What's up with your first picks?
I don't know.
They're just like, they're so bad. I mean, they're not horrible, but I mean, for a first pick, that's really disappointing, right? I mean, but of course, got to be thrilled with Grasping Thrall here. I mean, is that the best Orzhov common?
It almost certainly is. I actually prefer it over Final Payment. Like, the first Final Payment is probably better than the first Thrall, but I'd much rather have, like, 3 Thralls than 3 Final Payments.
Yeah, it's kind of diminishing returns on that, especially if you're using it to pay 5 life. Right. And then, of course, the Syndicate Messenger. I mean, especially with a card like Priest of Forgotten Gods, gets a little bit better in value. What do you think about that card just in general?
I think it's fine. It's, like, solid. I prefer it in a deck that's like more defensive normally, but it's certainly like a very solid attacker here.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. All right, let's go to picks 4 through 6 here. We got another copy of Ilgun Inheritance, which seems like it's just perfect in this deck with a ton of 2s, a Spire Mangler, and a Plague White. What are your thoughts on Spire Mangler?
Again, it's another one of these like good 20-thirds. It's like another one of these cards that the moment you see an Afterlife creature, it gets out of your deck.
Okay.
If you think your opponent's going to board in the volley, you also take it out of your deck. So it's just collateral damage from that card. But I think for game 1s especially, it's quite nice. You can like use it to ambush an attacker. You can use it to make your spirit token trade up when they like go to block it with their 2/3 flyer.
Oh, right, because it does pump those creatures out. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that was actually a nice little set here. Rounding out this pack, picks 7 through 9, we pick up a Senate Griffin, so a little bit of extra evasion to go into your deck, and then picks 10 through 14. Did anything else make it? This format has no shortage of flyers, right?
It really doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. And currently sitting at 2-0. How did you think about your deck just ultimately after the draft?
I think a lot of Orzhov decks play out better than they look. It's like the weird thing about the archetype. You have like a lot of kind of like not exciting cards in it, but they mesh well really together when they're like gaining you life, getting the drain going, chipping away. I'm pretty happy with this. I was expecting a 2-1. I'm very happy to be 2-0 with it. Yeah, yeah. Well, anyways, best of luck. Sitting 2-0. I mean, this deck does look like just very solid. You don't even have a bunch of like ridiculous rares, but it just looks like it's got a wonderful curve with a lot of good removal and interaction. So again, kicking butt at this tournament, sitting at 9-1. Best of luck next round and for the rest of the tournament. Thank you.